Welcome back to Hockey Pals. We're pals, we're talking hockey. As always, I'm joined by my host, Sam. Say hello.
Hello.
And I'm Steve. We're here doing the thing we do all the time. And today is a special time because it's NHL entry draft 2018. Stuff happened, right?
It wasn't the hype that it was meant to be. There was a lot of hype. People were supposed to get traded. People didn't get traded. There was only one big trade that happened.
Like most years, there's always a few surprises. This year, people were pretty set on Dahlin going first. Svechnikov was pretty sure thing to go second, all according to plan. And then Montreal showed up. Then Bergevin decided to step up to the plate, right?
Yeah, he stepped up to the plate and just disappointed his fan base again.
You can definitely relate with them as far as being disappointed on passing on some good players, but it does remind me of Columbus with the Pierre-Luc Dubois pick from a couple years back, where he played most of his draft year as a winger. And it was only, I think, halfway through Dubois' draft year that he switched to center. And so that was seen as a pretty risky pick. Clearly, it took a little bit, but just a couple years later, and now he definitely showed that he's stepped into that role this year with Panarin, and that definitely helps. But yeah, he's been pretty solid. So I think that's probably best case scenario, right?
Yeah, I'd consider that best case scenario. What I remember from that draft is actually similar to what happened with Zadina, but the opposite, where Dubois was moving up in the draft, and people were like, wait, this kid's actually amazing, and he kept climbing. And I know Vancouver thought they could get him at 5, I think. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then they couldn't get him at 5 because Columbus obviously drafted him. And then he obviously broke out. He's doing great in Columbus. But the difference here is nobody's thinking Montreal. I'm going to try and pronounce his last name.
Let's see how you do.
Kotkaniemi? Kotkaniemi?
Yeah, a little bit. I think the way I've been hearing it is Kotkaniemi.
Kotkaniemi? Okay, Kotkaniemi.
Kotkaniemi.
Okay, that's
the
so
T
much
is
easier.
kind of a little softer.
Yeah.
But maybe that's what we'll stick with for now. Yeah.
Okay. And then, he's supposed to be a center, which they need him. Even Bergevin was saying early on, like when they traded for Domi, we think he can play center. Is it going to work out? I mean, this guy single-handedly could have ruined the Canadiens franchise for the next little while.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is Montreal needs a center now. They don't need a center in 2 years or 3 years. So, if they were able to draft a Matthews or someone who could step in, who actually has Kotkaniemi, was he playing in Finland?
He was.
So there is that.
Yeah. So he's been playing. He has 29 points in 57 games, and he won 44% of his faceoffs. But that's 29 points in 57 games. So, and he had 15 minutes, 35 seconds of ice time. But the other thing is he's not even 18 yet. He turns 18 in July. So he's pretty big for his age. And the fact that he's playing with men at age 17.
Yeah, 6'2", 188. But that's always kind of the push and pull with these young guys, is like give them an opportunity to play with pro players and it can help them along, or let them play top line minutes in juniors or in the AHL. Actually, if he's coming from Finland, I think he can play in the American Hockey League. It does give them more latitude if it was a junior player. And I think he's getting a bit of a bad rap because of the other upside of every other player. Or not every other player, but a lot of the players that were available. And you kind of wonder when one team passes on a player, maybe they made a mistake, but once other teams start to do it, you kind of start to wonder, is there something that we don't know? Or is there character issues? Or is it, what are people worried about?
Yeah.
Maybe he didn't get worse. It's just that other players were kind of trending upwards and teams kind of wanted to take advantage of that. So I don't know. It's hard to say. Like we said, they could still go out and sign Stastny, and that would help stabilize things at least for the next couple of years. He's not like an elite top line center, but he can definitely hold it down for sure. So
absolutely.
Yeah. And then Brady Tkachuk off to Ottawa, which means that Ottawa is giving up their first-round pick to Colorado next year, which was part of the Duchesne trade.
Yeah,
where they
choose one or the other.
So it's definitely a gamble for a team that doesn't look like it's on its way up with all the rumors and the drama and the trades, the Hoffman trade. All those things, you know. So, but you know, definitely things didn't go well for Ottawa this year. Mm-hmm. So you sort of wonder which one are we going to see next year? The team that goes deep in the playoffs?
No,
you know,
no,
you don't know.
No,
you never know.
No,
you never know.
No, because they're selling everyone, and Hoffman was like a really important key to that lineup. And now, those goals are all gone. Carlson's pretty much guaranteed to get traded. So that defenseman's gone.
It's their third best forward or third best player.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Hoffman was definitely goal scorer. Florida just got a lot more interesting when you add him to the mix. Yeah. Carlson likely to be gone. I think part of it was that they promised to the fans that they would at least try and retain Carlson, and they can't make an offer to keep him until July 1st is the soonest they can re-sign him, which is a year out from when he would become a UFA next year. Mm-hmm. So that's part of the holdup, and I think partly why we didn't end up seeing him get moved at this draft.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
but Tkachuk. So Brady Tkachuk might be the better Tkachuk of the two brothers.
They say he's more skilled.
He's bigger. He has more skill. You see that often. I mean, even with Svechnikov and his brother, right? It's like you have the younger brother kind of gets the advantage of playing against his older brother and with him all the time and trying to keep up. And so oftentimes you'll see the younger brother end up being just a hair better. Andrei Svechnikov looks like just a beast, like just a huge, just power forward, a lot of Ovechkin comparisons and some Malkin, but although he's a winger, so, and just good at everything, apparently is the book on him. But with Tkachuk, we could end up seeing him, you know, step into the NHL. Would Tkachuk have made another team at camp? Maybe not, but they don't, but he's definitely overnight their best prospect. I mean, there's no more Hoffman in his way, right?
Yeah, there's no Hoffman.
So they're making it easier by the day. All you got to do is, you know, outskate Bodker. So,
hey, Bodker's a fast skater. He's great. Duchesne apparently
he doesn't know what to do when he gets there. But.
Yeah, a little confused. He'll learn.
Yeah.
He's got Duchesne there because Duchesne actually backed Bodker when that trade was happening. Apparently, they asked Duchesne, "What do you think of Bodker?" Because they played in Colorado together, and he was like, "Oh yeah," and he vouched for Bodker. It's
been a while since we've seen Bodker be great.
Yeah,
but. It's not out of the question. He's not that old. Mm-hmm. And who knows? A lot of it comes down to, it's, you know, we're always reminded of Vegas, right? Where you look at the team on paper and you're wondering, like, it'll be lucky for them to not finish last. So who knows? Is Ottawa a playoff team? Doesn't look like it. Are they last in the league? Maybe. Like when you look around, it's hard to look at other teams and project them to be worse, right? Arizona's going to be better.
Yep.
Minnesota is kind of stuck in this, like, I know they made the playoffs this year, and I know Suter was hurt, which didn't help them get past the first round. But Minnesota, not a lot to look forward to, you know, outside of, I think it's Kirill Kaprizov, which was this hotshot Russian they drafted in the 5th round, and you know, they're trying to bring him over. I think he has another year or two on his contract in the KHL, and he's been tearing it up. So if he comes over, they definitely have a dynamic player. Their best player now is Mikko Granlund, who's, we might have seen his best, which is kind of a mid-60-point guy, which is great.
Yeah.
But no Hart trophies going to Minnesota anytime soon. So
yeah, but they've still been doing really good. And the resurgence of Eric Stahl's career.
How long is that going to stay up?
Yeah, I won't stay up for too long. I remember when they were considered, they had the best prospect pool in the league at one point, and this was like 5 years ago.
They had Granlund, they had Dumba, they had Zucker.
Brodin was also starting to do good. And then now there's nothing really to show for it. It's
sort of the other side of the coin of when you have a good prospect pipeline, it means they end up making the NHL, which means you need to replenish, right? So I remember seeing that knock against Columbus as well, where it was like, oh, their prospect pool is kind of shallow. And it's like, well, Werenski's already up and playing top minutes.
Yeah.
And, Dubois is up. So a lot of their young guys have already made that jump. So it's kind of two ways to look at it. But that's kind of, that's sort of what's going on in Ottawa. We don't have to get too deep into the cyberbullying and all the other craziness over there. I think when they trade Hoffman away, that hopefully closes the door on that. But
I like how they traded him away and he ends up back in like the same conference.
Yeah, San Jose did him dirty. But imagine if this is how San Jose gets to sign JT.
Yeah.
Because they cleared up Bodker's cap hit.
Yeah.
And gained a second rounder and some other picks out of it. So good on them.
Yeah.
There's definitely, you got to go for it when you can.
Well, San Jose met with them. So
Yeah. We'll get to Tavares, but finishing up with the draft, Barrett Hayton goes to the Arizona Coyotes.
This was another kind of Montreal-esque pick.
A center.
Yeah.
Arizona going for the center. They have Galchenyuk now, and they have Stepan, they have Keller, Dvorak, Christian Fisher, who is like a ton of goals in the AHL. So another center, you definitely can see where they're coming from. Who knows? They hire these scouts for a reason. If they're not listening to their scouts, like, what are you doing?
And generally, their drafting has been quite good in Arizona. So it's not anything where, you can't really bag on Arizona and be like, oh, look, they're doing a repeat of previous drafted players, because you just listed off some really good top 6 forwards.
For sure. Yeah, you can put yourself in a position where if you're just listening to trying to follow the trend, like, you'll always be a step behind. So
yeah, I
don't know. And even the trading down, that was the big thing with Montreal is they really liked Kotkaniemi, and they were like, well, if we trade down to 6th, we don't know he's there. And he probably wouldn't have been. Like, Arizona probably would have taken him. I mean, the nice side of it is that, at this point, Vancouver fans are like, are we really going to get Zadina? Like, is that really, like, when it's down to him and the second best defenseman to pick from?
Yeah.
Whoever they think that is, which I think they think for them it's Quinn Hughes. So Barrett Hayton, Sault Ste. Marie, another center. And best case scenario, it's sort of a Mark Scheifele situation where I think Scheifele was also not expected to go in the top 10. Although there's less Scheifele's and more, I don't know, what's the player? Mark Jankowski. You remember him?
No.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm getting at. So Scheifele was drafted 7th overall in 2011.
Yeah.
And right after Scheifele was Couturier, which, again, Jets couldn't have gone wrong picking him either. It's crazy that Couturier slipped to 8th. I brought up Mark Jankowski. He's actually, I remember he was like a very off the board pick from Calgary, and he was a center, and he was pretty big, 6'4", 205. Although he was picked at 21st overall, which, you kind of, you give it a little more leeway. It's like harder to kind of hit something out of the park at that point. So Barrett Hayton could be good, could be interesting. Rooting for you, Arizona. See you in the final next year. Coming soon.
They have a great young lineup. It's actually pretty impressive.
Yeah, and Ranta has been solid. Yeah. So hopefully that continues. And then moving on from Barrett Hayton, Philip Zadina, Detroit Red Wings. Red Wings finally have a flashy, exciting, dare I say, elite goal scorer. I mean, Mantha definitely projects to be pretty awesome with how big he is and everything, and he's pretty fast, I think. And Larkin is very fast, and yeah. So then we're looking at Detroit, and how's their lineup changed from this?
Do you think he's going to come in right away? Apparently, he's not very. His combine report was average at best.
Okay, some teams put more weight into the combine. Like, I forget what player it was. I think it was Liam Foudy, who was drafted at 18th by Columbus, which was a little off the board. Like, some people thought it was a little early to take him. And then you look at his combine results, and he was basically first in everything. So, you know, a lot of people look at the combine results as a way to be kind of the tiebreaker, right? If you're looking between a couple players and you're like, do we go with this guy or this guy? And then this guy just crushes the combine and has a great interview. You're like, all right, I guess that makes it easy.
Yeah. The other thing to think about too is if he's that good and he's put no time into development, like as far as like workout off ice, how good is he going to be once he gets to Detroit and they're like, okay, time to do off ice workouts?
That's another way to look at it, for sure.
So
it's like there's room for improvement there, right?
Yeah.
I mean, take this with the largest grain of salt you have right now, but I'm looking at daily face-off for their lineups. And right now they have the first line centered by Dylan Larkin with Mantha on his right and Tyler Bertuzzi on the left, who should be good. Like he's played great for Grand Rapids. And then the second line they have lining up on left wing, Philip Zadina with Zetterberg and Rasmussen, who was their first rounder from last year. Maybe a kid line centered by Zetterberg on the second line with like offensive starts for most of them. That could be great.
How much do you think this is going to be this is Detroit related, but Zetterberg's contract ends in 2021.
Okay.
Do you think he's going to play till then? Because his body's like deteriorating every year.
Yeah. I mean, remember last year he had like 68 points, right?
Yeah, like it was good for sure. It was good, but
and it wasn't a great Detroit team this year, especially on the back end. You know, they didn't have, you know, Mike Green was pretty inconsistent, and that was kind of their top offensive option from the back. Yeah, you know, outside of Trevor Daley and Danny DeKeyser. So. Yeah. You know, we'll see what happens there.
Oh, he had 56. Yeah. You're right. He had 68, then 56,
and then 56 this last year. Yeah. So it's not out of the question for him to break 60 again next year, especially if they have. The main thing I think is finding the best deployment for him. Right? It sort of reminds me of the Sedins where you're like, okay, like how long are we going to keep rolling these guys out on the first line in the power play? And luckily last year, we had enough young players with Horvat and Besser where you could kind of start to make that transition, and it felt like a natural handoff. And, you know, they gracefully bowed out and did the Sedin thing. So
beautiful.
But with Zetterberg, I think a lot of people were wondering if he'd even come back this year. I don't know. Hopefully as the young kids start to step up and, you know, he's relied on to play less than 20 minutes a night, but we'll see how that goes.
All right.
That's Detroit.
You know, great pickup. Thank you, Montreal. Thank you, Ottawa. Thank you, Arizona.
Did you get to watch much of the draft?
I didn't know. I went back and watched all the highlights, though. And Dahlin's face was priceless when he got drafted.
I mean, he knew. He was definitely excited. They did these, like, cheeseball, like, walk and talk interviews with him and, like one of these Sportsnet guys, like, around Dallas, I think. Yeah. And it was them like walking the street and talking, and he's like, wow, so, you know, you're gonna go first overall. How does that feel? You know, are you excited? You play hockey and now you're gonna play more hockey. Real cool, right? And he's like, yeah, real cool. I love hockey. And it's like 10 minutes of that. They're like, well, yeah, you've been playing in the Swedish league and you've been living on your own since you were 16. And he's like, Yep. So I'm ready for that too. And it's like, it was a pretty lame interview, but I bring it up because he was wearing a Buffalo Bills hat.
Oh,
so he's already like, and he was, you know, giving autographs to Buffalo fans and everything. So, you know, it was a sure thing that he was getting taken. I think when you are drafted first overall, you're usually going to a team that needs you. And so you're kind of ready for that. Good stuff. Looking forward to you, Rasmus. It's coming soon to the NHL. It'll be a lot of fun. Most teams got some really good players.
This is a very good draft class.
Yeah. So 2018. So Zadina is in Detroit. Detroit goes crazy. And then comes to Vancouver. And they kind of had their defenseman of choice to choose from.
Yes.
You know, they were looking at Quinn Hughes, Adam Boqvist, Evan Bouchard, and Noah Dobson. And then Wahlstrom is sort of rated as a really high-end scorer forward. So it was kind of those 5 players or so that people were expecting. And they went with the small guy, going with Quinn Hughes. Do you know anything about this guy?
He is a very good skater. A very good passing. If you watch his highlight videos, his stretch passes are actually tape to tape, and they're perfect. I just remember Benning was like a child when they were interviewing him about getting Hughes, and he was just so ecstatic. He's like, "Oh, I'm so excited! It's so exciting." And you could just tell the way his mind thinks as far as putting the pieces together and being like, we now have this amazing offensive defenseman that can move the puck out of the zone cleanly to these insane forwards that we have, and it's just going to be beautiful. And it's something that Vancouver has kind of lacked. The last good defensive passer, I want to say, was Ehrhoff.
Yeah, even him. It's like when he was on, and he did good. His number's not getting retired anytime soon.
No, not at all. But
he was there on the run, the cup run, right? And he was part of those dominant power plays in Vancouver, and definitely overnight the huge upgrade. And it also takes a huge amount of pressure off of Juolevi. We don't need him to be the next whoever, right? He can end up being Joe Pavelski, we don't need him to be the next Sammy Salo, right? So it'll be interesting. It does help out Juolevi too, for sure. Yeah. And Quinn Hughes, he's 5'10", 175, which is not bad. He still looks like he's 13.
I think Pettersson is smaller than that. I think Pettersson is 6.
He's a stick. Patrick Kane is 5'11" and 177. So he's right at around the size Patrick Kane is, and probably plays a similar game as far as being
he does hold
speedy,
the puck.
Evasive, and able to just kind of beat you with speed.
I gotta tell you this one move he did in this highlight package. He has the puck on a string, and there's 2 defensemen, and he's moving with the puck so good. Like, he's baiting the defenseman so good. He basically cracks open the defenseman, like he does a spinorama, and passes through them to his somebody beside the net, and they whiffed on the shot. But his pass and him kind of playing with the puck and kind of manipulating the defenseman, beautiful. It was beautiful. So that's the one thing to get excited about for sure. For
sure. And if Vancouver plays a lot of their young players this year, they'll get the experience they need. Besser alone will win a bunch of games. And our goalie situation, we're not trying to make the playoffs right now. So I think best case scenario, we play our young guys. We play Markstrom and Nielsen, who've been fine. They haven't been you're not winning a cup with these guys, but they've been okay. And I think they're both back next year. Is that right? I think so.
Yes, I think they're both back, yeah.
And that sets us up perfect, at least gets us in the lottery to hopefully take Jack Hughes. And then we got our brothers are back. We got our brothers back in it. Perfect. And Jack Hughes is supposed to go first overall next year. So, and the draft is in Vancouver. Come on. What better story? Bring the Sedins to pick the brothers.
He even says Jack Hughes was very, they were interviewing him. There was pictures of them being excited for each other and stuff. And Jack Hughes was super ecstatic about his brother getting picked.
He's proud of him.
And I would love to play with Vancouver with my brother and all this stuff. So when you hear that, you're kind of oh, you should go, because people were he should do the college trick, which you just go to college for 4 years, then you become a UFA. But
I don't know, man. I think he's too excited to play in the NHL.
Yeah, he's not gonna.
Anyone drafted first overall, they're not staying in college for 4 years.
Yeah,
when by the end of those 4 years, they could have made $15 million or whatever it is.
Yeah, but I can dream. I can pretend he's gonna do that for us.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with the college education. Do your thing. Do your thing. And if we don't end up winning the lottery, I think Brian Burke's available, and I think we can just get him, hire him for a month, make some dealing wheeling Brian Burke, and get Jack. Just bring Jack, bring him home. Bring him to Brotown in Vancouver. It's going to be good.
They had him on the panel at the draft. Did you see that?
They did. Jack Hughes, yeah?
No, Brian Burke.
They did.
Yeah, my God.
Oh, that's what I was asking. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. If you watched it, you see Brian Burke on the panel at Sportsnet. He's just this curmudgeon-y old guy. He was real upset that Carolina ended up jumping up, over 9 different teams to get the second overall pick. He's like, it's not fair. It's not right. And he just wouldn't drop it. And he's got a point, especially with Calgary. I don't think ever really won with him there. And Toronto, I mean, it's worked out fine for them. But yeah, Vancouver has been snake bitten by that and by the draft lottery over these years. But at the end of the day, because of teams still picking who they think they really need, guys slip every year. And if you're able to get Quinn Hughes at 7th, I mean, I know he's still a kid, but that's a steal. And I don't know. If they end up drafting at 4th, they still might have taken him.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Apparently, Benning had told Hughes' father that your son isn't getting past us. Like Quentin Hughes is not getting past us. And I think the way this draft unfolded, which Bob McKenzie reiterated a bunch of times, that it really depends, because you can have your players in I want the best player. Let's say it was, let's say your best player was in the 4th position. It was Quentin Hughes, but those other players ahead of him didn't get picked. Then you would have gotten with let's say Zadina in that situation, or you know what I mean, with the adjustments and with these off the board picks, I think is what led to us to Vancouver getting Quentin Hughes.
Sure, and I guess it's you sound more and more like Brian Burke every day, where kind of standing up for justice, is they shouldn't have to hope they land someone like Quinn Hughes, but even if they didn't, they still would have gotten someone like Kotkaniemi or Barrett Hayton, and who knows. So that's Vancouver. Then Chicago just slipping in there, getting another offensive defenseman to tag out with Duncan Keith as they wheel his old man body off the ice. Adam Boakfist. So that should be good for Chicago.
Yeah. Another
guy who's probably still a couple years out, but they got a guy who, at best, he's that strong Swedish offensive option that dominates, and at worst, I don't know what his floor is, but a lot of people have him ranked pretty highly, so let's go with that.
Yeah,
and that's what Chicago needs for sure. They need these young players to step in. Yeah,
so badly. That core of the Stanley Cup champ core is it's pretty much done at this point.
Well, there were rumors about them trying to move Taves, and moving Taves at 10.5. I think they had matching contracts, him and Kane.
And how long does that contract go for?
2023. So
that's a lot of money.
It was front loaded as far as actual money, and it's Taves and Kane, it seems like it would be really sad to see them on another team, right? Mm-hmm. It's like those are guys you want to see retire.
Okay, well, I think with him, it depends a lot on so his contract kind of ends in a cushy spot. I think he's going to be 35 when it ends. Mm-hmm. So you still got some really quality years out of him. But the question is it more of hey, I'm doing Chicago a favor, or is it Chicago, I'm giving you Jonathan Taves, I deserve some return back? Because I'm sure some teams would definitely jump on Jonathan Taves.
Leadership, right?
Yeah, and he's still good. It's not like he's bad.
He's still good. I think he would be an amazing second line center.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Now. Yeah. And it's that whole thing where you end up getting stuck in this quote unquote cap hell, which they've done pretty great at kind of running over the coals and every summer kind of being all right, we're going to get this guy. Okay, cool. Let's do this guy. Okay. All right. Now, they're out. They're gone. We'll get this guy. I mean, it's the whole reason they traded Panarin was because they didn't think they could afford him. Mm-hmm. And, they'd probably want to take that back, that move But Saad should be better next year, and they still got Forsberg as their backup, who could still be decent for them. So anyway, that's Chicago.
Is Hossa still on their books? Hossa is. Yeah. He's at 5.2.
Do you know about why he's basically retired now? Right?
Is it concussions?
No, he has a skin condition where he's allergic to his hockey equipment.
Get out of here.
Yeah. I don't know if this has ever been recorded ever before, and apparently the treatment for the skin condition is too hard on his body to be able to play like professional hockey. And because of like the penalties for retiring, he's basically just going to be on long-term injury reserve, LTIR.
So not against the cap.
No, but I think it's something where like they need to have room for him at the start of the year. And so it might be something where they need to like move guys to the AHL for the start of the season, and then they can bring them up afterwards. But
yeah, I think there needs to be some sort of rule that, like if there's just no way for him to play. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing if someone were to, something happens and somebody gets like cancer, let's say. What are you supposed to do?
They're guaranteed contracts. So I think that I don't know enough about the NFL, but I'm pretty sure like in football, they're not guaranteed contracts. So if you get injured and you're done, like the team doesn't need to pay you for 5 more years, which is kind of crazy. And I think they have like insurance on their bodies and everything. So that's how they kind of roll with it. But
the teams get screwed in the cap hit.
In
that's
the NHL,
problem.
They have relief. Like they're able to spend up to that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Are they smarter than us?
Probably.
Or is it just politics? I don't know. Both.
A little bit of both.
So that's Boqvist. And then another surprise at number 9th. New York Rangers taking Vitaly Kravtsov from Tractor Chelyabinsk. And he's a guy who had I think a really strong playoffs in the KHL.
Yes.
Was playing as a 17-year-old, putting up like Kuznetsov numbers at this, at equivalent ages. So a lot to be excited about. And I think he's 6'2", like 180 or something like that. Yeah, 6'2", 183. Right wing. Big, scary Russian. Hopefully. And I think, I like what the Rangers are doing, right? They have Buchnevich. They have another one of their top goalie prospects, Shestyorkin, another Russian guy. So again, back to your theory, you need more than one Russian for them to hang out and have a good time and get along. So
yeah, well, I like the players that do really well in the playoffs, because I think that tells you a lot about the type of character they have, and that it's almost like they step up kind of mentality. Mm-hmm. And I love players like that.
Clutch boys.
I love them. Them. They're so fun.
All about it. And again, New York gets some interesting pieces. So it's things could move quickly over there. And I think they still have to wait for his KHL contract to run up. I think there might be 1, maybe 2 more years on that. And nothing wrong with that. Why not develop over there at a high level where he's already doing well? And having other Russian players on the team will definitely help kind of entice him to come over and join the party. And when they spend such a high pick on him, I'm sure, a lot of Russians, in the past, there was sort of the Russian factor, right? Where people were worried about taking them, considering it a risk. And that's where, Kuznetsov and Tarasenko ended up getting drafted in the second half of the first round because of that. And for them, it took nearly 3 years for them to come around to get over to the NHL. So it's definitely a wait, and probably worth the wait if they do end up coming over. And I think it was only maybe 5 years, 6 years. It might have been during the lockout actually that the KHL and the NHL ended up coming to an agreement to kind of call a truce and not steal players away, try and like honor the contracts from each other's leagues. Because that used to be a thing where, if you're a UFA, you can still sort of maybe bluff or say that maybe I'll just go back home, right? And I think with Russian players, you kind of have to trust that bluff a little more, or because that is an option for them. But at least now, on paper, they're looking to honor each other's contracts. So that can only be good for everyone.
Yeah, and when you see someone like Kovalchuk come back at age 35, could kind of give you a little bit of insight. Like, I think they know the NHL is the number one kind of league in the world.
Right.
There's not this like illusion of, oh no, I want to stay in Russia, and just like, I feel like this is like the best league, and, I want to be in my home country and stuff like that. I think there is this kind of like, oh, well, like Kovalchuk, arguably one of the better Russian players in the world, is coming over here. Ovechkin plays over here. Kuznetsov just won. Ovechkin just won.
Yeah, winning the cup is kind of that last, like, if you haven't done that, I think, these young players still grow up thinking like, one day I'll win the best trophy in the best league, and that's what it comes down to. And if there was, and I think the Olympics are up there too for a lot of these players. It's just no World Cup, but the Olympics and the Stanley Cup are definitely there. And the KHL, I mean, it's gotten better for sure over the last 10 years. The quality of play, the development, a lot of players, even a lot of coaches are going over there. I think Mike Keenan is still there. NHL guys are making a go over there. So
yeah,
it's pretty good. Pretty good. And then Edmonton, they got a defenseman, man.
Finally.
Evan Bouchard.
Finally. Very good defenseman, by the way. Very good defenseman. I wouldn't have been against us picking him up.
6'2", 192.
Yeah.
Big boy.
Big
and
dude.
Apparently really good, really strong passer, great shot, and that's what they need. As much as it's easy to dump on Edmonton, we're all curious to see when it all clicks, and to see that much talent on the ice at the same time, just knocking it out. So
yeah. He's the first defenseman since Ryan Ellis to be in top 10 in scoring.
Oh, in the OHL.
Yeah.
Where was he in the scoring in the OHL this year?
He was tied for seventh with 87 points, 25 goals, 62 assists.
Damn.
Pretty good. I don't know what happened there. I guess Vancouver saw. I think he's. I'll say this. I think the reason though is that Bouchard is more of a less movement. He's not a very good skater, I would say.
Got it.
Like he's more of like a, hard shot, good pass, stationary guy. Mm-hmm. Whereas Hughes is more move the puck, good shot, good control of the puck, and a way better skater, but way smaller.
Quinn Hughes, I heard one of the scouting reports on him said he could be the best skater in the draft. Like could be the best edge work and everything. And I think you need to be when you're on the smaller side. And maybe it's easier when you're smaller just to get around and kind of those water bug players. So
I like that. That sounds really good actually.
Yeah, could be interesting. And then bang bang, back to back. New York Islanders get two players that, probably slipped. Oliver Wahlstrom probably, again, could be the best pure offensive player in the draft.
You're welcome, Barzell.
Yeah. It's gonna be nutty. Like, how can the Islanders not just be great? I'm excited.
Yeah, they don't even need Taves. Just let Vancouver sign him, and then you guys can do whatever.
Yeah, you don't need him. You don't need Tavares.
Yeah.
Just
Barzell and Wahlstrom.
Yeah, knock it out the park. They got Kiefer Bellows. I think was one of the best goal scorers in the draft 2 years ago.
You're going to be just fine, Islanders.
And then Noah Dobson, who was heavily rumored to be Vancouver's pick at number 7. And maybe he would have been if Quinn Hughes hadn't been on the board. He's 6'2", I think.
He won the Memorial Cup. Yeah, they said he was just getting better and better and better as the season went on.
Yeah, they're saying that most of the people, 6'3", 180. So he is... I think that was one thing that some people were maybe a little worried about, was just the recency bias of anyone watching him in the Memorial Cup. And everyone loves the playoff performance. And, how many scouts get to see that from any of these players? I think that's sort of why traditionally a lot of Canadian players end up doing well. It's just because it's easier to track their games, I'm guessing. That's probably part of it.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. That's we should have a alarm or something in 3 years. We should go back and look at this draft, the rankings from 3 months ago to where everyone got drafted and kind of take into account for the hype. Like Zadina dropping out of the top 5, and Bouchard was like, people were saying Bouchard was supposed to be a really good defenseman. Arguably, people were saying he was supposed to be like the second best defenseman, but then he drops to 10. Then you have Dobson also dropping out. I'm very curious. It seems like a very interesting draft to look back on in a few years.
It's a lot. It's a lot to take in, and all these things. They're still kids, and another player that was considered one of the strongest defensive players in this draft, but also had the most question marks as far as character. Some people saying he was even uncoachable, is Ryan Merkley, who San Jose took a flyer on at the 21st pick. And it's one of those things, again, you sort of think like, where will all these players be in 3 years and 5 years? Like it always changes. Like as far as who would get taken, it depends on how they've done, how they ended up developing over time, who avoided injury issues. But with a guy like Merkley, who's considered uncoachable by some scouts, and having just attitude issues, and who knows what's really behind it, but enough is behind it to where he slipped to 21. And for San Jose, as much as people could look at it as a risk, they're also betting on their strengths of developing players. They're like, no, we believe like we can turn this guy around. We have enough faith in our team and our culture that like not even worried about it, but it does sort of make you think of other players in the past who've kind of had those same labels. And
would it be someone that they may have signed this season?
Sure. Yeah. That's one of them. I'm guessing Evander Kane, right?
Yeah.
So maybe for them, they're like, listen, we already got him. So what else could happen, right? Throw him in with Evander Kane. But it makes me think of other teams that have kind of taken a swing on players with attitude issues, or maybe whatever it is, whatever. A few come to mind is Josh Ho-Sang. Kind of had a bit of that reputation, and I think it was even like his second. It wasn't his first training camp, but it was like a year after. Like he came back for training camp or summer camp or something, and he like slept in and like missed a like came in really late to a practice. And like, if you can't even show up, like it's just a bad look, and it kind of sets you back. It's like you already have this label of being maybe difficult or hot shot or trying to win all by yourself, and not making it about the team. And then you sleep in. Like, I guess it could happen to anyone, but it has to happen to him, or maybe it happens to other players and it just doesn't make the news because it doesn't fit the narrative. So, you could look at it both ways. Islanders also, Kirill Kabanov. Do you remember this guy?
No.
Same situation, like really skilled player, 6'3", 192. I mean, he is now. He's 25. And if you're wondering, why do I not know this guy? it's because he's in the KHL, and, he was drafted. But for him, he was drafted 65th overall. Same draft class as Kuznetsov and Tarasenko and Granlund and all them. But yeah, I remember same kind of thing. It's like high skill, high risk, high reward, and clearly didn't quite work out for the Islanders. So, but they have enough that has worked out, so they'll be okay.
Yeah. If they can retain John Tavares, yeah.
The other fun part of this draft is, or every draft, is who's got the good names. Who's got the good hockey names?
Tell me the good ones.
Did you have any favorite hockey names?
I mean, other than the guy that Vancouver is really the only name that kind of stands out to me is Jet Wu. Jet Wu from the Moose Jaw Warriors. Jet Wu, such a good name. It's like it is a very
double
good
whammy. Just both so good. Half Chinese guy, other half Canadian. I think his dad grew up in Winnipeg too. I saw an interview with them He's from Winnipeg, and his first name is Jet. Could you imagine? Can you imagine?
And last name Wu.
Yeah, but could you imagine like if he was drafted by the Jets? Jet Wu goes to the Jets from Winnipeg, hometown hero. Anyway, I'm glad that he ended up in Vancouver. Apparently, he's like really physical defenseman, and started the year point per game for the first 17 games of his season, and then ran into some injury issues and like didn't quite look like himself once he got back. So hopefully it's something with a full summer to heal up. He ends up turning things around. We could use another heavy defenseman to even out the Quinn Hughes, Levy territory. And then the other fun name was Blade Jenkins.
What?
Yeah, first name Blade Jenkins.
People are naming their kids Blade?
Yeah, it was in the 5th round, 134th pick, going to the New York Islanders, playing in the OHL for Saginaw. Blade Jenkins, man, just so good, so good.
That is a very tough name.
Yeah, do you know anything else about him?
No, tell me. I know nothing.
Me neither. I don't need to.
His name.
Yeah, that's all.
His name is self-explanatory.
That's all we need to know. The other fun story from the draft was Liam Kirk, who is drafted by Arizona, and I think he was a 7th round pick, and he was the first player to be drafted from the UK to have been developed in the UK. So he's been playing in the UK this whole time. And
wait, what?
Yeah, so a good little Brit boy, Liam, as British of a name as you can get.
Pretty much.
Great Britain has a new favorite team, which is the Arizona Coyotes. I'm rooting for the guy. I remember this for Washington. It was Nathan Walker. Did you hear about this guy? Nathan Walker was an Australian who won the Cup this year. And you know, he didn't play every game, I don't think, but he was there. He's I don't have my name on the cup. He does. So congrats to you, Australia. I think that's kind of all we need. Just Blade Jenkins to Jet Wu. Another guy was, I think, from the 3rd round, and Vancouver drafted him, actually. His name is Bulat Shafagulin. Shafagulin?
That's a tough one. Good luck to the announcers, eh?
Not Bufflin. Not Bufflin.
No, not Bufflin.
No. Bulat. Yeah. Anyway, that's always fun. And another Sutter kid, Riley Sutter. We have another one of them. Still going.
Jesus.
He was drafted in 3rd round, end of the 3rd round by Washington, by the Caps.
It's never going to end with that family.
No, man. They go forever. There's no turning back. I don't know how many that brings them up to. It's a lot.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of Sutter, though.
Yes.
Daryl Sutter retired.
He retired. Okay.
Yeah.
Until he gets the call, right?
Yeah, until somebody gives him a big enough paycheck. Yeah.
Yeah, but he's got nothing else to prove. You know, he's won
his cups.
Great career. I always remember anyone who from LA who goes to enough Kings games. Do you ever go to NHL games? Have you been to many?
I saw Brock Besser score a hat trick against Pittsburgh, his first hat trick ever.
Man.
And then I relished in Murray whining about it like a little girl in the post game.
It's good.
That made me feel really good.
It's good. You know, Vancouver fans will take what we can get. Right?
Yeah, and then he lit him up again in their next meeting.
Beautiful.
Feels good.
Yeah, and then he had all summer to revel in that moment, you know, with the rest of the Canucks. So it's a good time. It's a good time right there.
Yeah.
Because when I was living in Vancouver, tickets were just like, it's always expensive. And also I was like more broke. And, you know, it was like basically, you know, $100 for nosebleeds. And, you know, to sit anywhere in the lower bowl, it's like, you know, it's at least $200. So anyway, it's clearly, I guess it's great, you know, that the team's making money so they can pay all those Canadian taxes. Good for them. But at the Kings, the reason I brought it up, if you go to, anytime Daryl Sutter was there, which he was there all the time until this past summer when he was let go, his son, I forget his name, would be at almost every game and would always be on the dance cam. And so they would always cut to his son, who has just really sweet kid, and he has Down syndrome, and he's just a smiley, fun dude. And every game good. They would he'd jump out into the aisle and they'd put the camera on him on the Jumbotron, and he would just get down, and the whole Staples Center would go crazy for him every time. And it was just such a fun part of Kings games. And so, I think it was, and this past year was the first year he wasn't, Chris Sutter. And I think this past year was the first time in years that he hadn't coached the Kings. And so he wasn't at, every Kings game anymore. I don't know if the family still lives there at all. But I did go to a playoff game this year. I was there with a friend to be there in person to watch Vegas sweep them. So I was there for game 4 when they got kicked out. But Chris Sutter was there and he was doing his dance. It was so great. So great.
Oh,
so hopefully he gets down for games. I'm sure he's still a big Kings fan. So that'll be fun. Yeah. And while we're on LA, there's another big Kings fan who decided to call it home for 3 years.
Oh boy.
Ilya Kovalchuk to Los Angeles.
He's back.
3 years, and $6.25 million. The same contract that Marleau just signed in Toronto. Although he's, I think, 2 to 3 years younger than Marleau was when he signed it.
Who would you rather have? 1 year, I think, right now. I think give him for 1 year.
For 1 year, when we have more data on Marleau, because we just saw him, how he fit in, and he showed up in the playoffs. He was pretty solid. I'm taking Kovy. I'm doing it. Marleau is filling the need.
You baited that so hard. Oh, Marleau, he was so good. I'd rather take Kovalchuk.
He was, man. Marleau was good. If I was Vancouver, I would still take Marleau, but I wouldn't turn him away. If he needs a place to hang out for 3 years, sure. But Kovy, I'm always a fan, man.
Dude, he's giant. He can shoot. He can score. He can skate. Come on.
I think he'll surprise people. There's a lot of people who are always sort of skeptical of Russian players coming back. And yes, he's 35, but he has played here and he knows what it takes. It's not like someone coming over. It's not like, Shipachev or Plotnikov or whatever Russian guy that decides to come over every summer who's played in the KHL for his whole career. He's a 50 goal scorer. Not this year, but 6-time 40 goal scorer. It's unreal. He's dominant. So I'm excited to see what he can do in LA. And even if he is a bit slower and whatever, it'll be a lot of fun.
People always tend to not mention is that he was big. He could hit. He was very Ovechkin-like.
Yeah,
in that regard.
Pretty decent defensively as well. Wasn't a huge liability. Not like Hossa territory where he was that good on both sides, but still solid. Yes, that's what LA's got going on. Last draft, the Kings took Gabriel Velarde at 11th, I think it was, and he was another center that looked like he might have been slipping in the draft, and they ended up taking him, and he was kind of injured. He had some back injury at the start of the year this year. And so he didn't even have a chance to try and crack the Kings lineup. But big body, had a huge year once he did come back. And so apparently he's got a shot this year at training camp to maybe make the Kings. So that could be interesting. See if we got another young guy coming up. And their draft this year, what do they got? They got this Rasmus Kopari, Finnish guy. I think he's a center and probably not ready right away, but some scouts had him ranked a little higher, but it's probably a pretty good place to get him. And that was their only first round pick. And I think they had a couple that maybe, I think it was Akil Thomas, who's another really highly rated player they got in the second round who could do good things for them. So I'm rooting for the Kings just so I can watch more playoff hockey. That alone. I'm a fan of that. I'm into that.
You kind of have a soft spot for players that are starting to like go up in age. It's kind of like their last go at it. So I don't know. I like Jeff Carter, Dustin Brown, Kopitar. They're kind of starting to get up there, and I don't see that like core of that team is kind of about to finish. So it'd be nice to see them go for a little run.
Yeah, and signing Kovalchuk is sort of a message to everyone that they believe that, you know, they got another run in them, you know, without making other huge kind of sweeping changes. So, you know, this season will be really telling to see what they do. You have to think that next year they're thinking long and hard about what they do after that moving forward, see how their prospects are coming along, see if they can find any trade options. Because at the end of next year, Drew Doughty, UFA, next summer.
Yeah.
So this is, and I think there's quotes of him even sort of talking about like how he just wants to win. And of course he wants to win in LA, and he's, you know, they've been good to him. He's been here a long time, fan favorite. It sort of feels like a Tavares situation where if they, you know, I'm sure he's kind of looking at LA and being like, all right, like, let's see where you guys are at next year. Like, I would be surprised if he signs an extension this summer. Sort of a similar situation to Carlson. Like, I think he said he wants Carlson money, and maybe he'll get close to that.
Definitely.
But then you're looking at what, 10.5, maybe 11 million a year. So I don't know. Yeah. That's a lot of money. So
I don't know. What did Las Vegas have to pay someone 10.5 to make it to the finals?
Well, could they do it again? These are the questions we have to ask ourselves, right? These are all the questions. So yeah, I hope Doughty retires a King, but you know, it would definitely be juicy news to see him end up on another team and see what that does. Yeah, so speaking of UFAs, speaking of Tavares, John Tavares, linked to 5 different teams. We're looking at Toronto. Yeah, really though? Really? Toronto.
I hope not.
Dallas, Tampa Bay, Las Vegas, and San Jose. So that's kind of who's at least in the mix currently. And don't let me forget to name the Islanders. I think they're also in the mix. So I think that would be 6 teams if you're looking at that. And that's based off the rumors. I mean, you know, we've been surprised by a couple trades already. So it would be, he could go anywhere as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I remember Pittsburgh even having interest in him.
Yeah.
But, you know, cap-wise, you know.
Vancouver was supposed to be, but I haven't heard anything.
Who knows? It could be a surprise. It does seem like something where if he's leaving the Islanders, he's got to be going somewhere that he thinks is in a better position to win. Like, why would he leave the Islanders if he, especially with all the changes they've made, with like the high-end draft picks, solid young players coming up. I mean, all they need is a goalie, and they're looking pretty. They're a playoff team. I mean, even last year, that like it seemed like that would happen. And they re-signed Bailey. They already got his guy they like playing with. Yeah. Anders Lee, those 3 have top dominant line in the league for a lot of last year. Yeah, Islanders is not the worst place to go. And apparently they're playing half their home games on Long Island. There was the whole, do you hear any of this controversy about them playing in Brooklyn for a lot of the last couple of years?
Yeah.
And it's just not, there's a car in the stands, like they're doing ads for like a car in the seats, like you're sitting in the lower bowl next to a Chevy or something. So they did get approval for a new arena in Belmont Park, which I think is on the island. So I feel like the Islanders have done everything they can on their end to be like, come on, man, we're doing this for you. But here's the bigger question is, let's say he leaves, because that's more exciting. What do they do with all that cap space? Who do the Islanders get if they lose out on Johnny T? Carlson just re-signed in Washington to an 8-year, $8 million deal. Did they sign Paul Stastny? Is that what they do? That would be sad, man. They go
That
from
would
signing,
be really sad.
but I think it does give them that option with Barzal stepping up. You know, it definitely softens the blow if you do end up losing him, and it lets you kind of play Stastny on the second line or on the top line, and then giving and taking more defensive zone starts. He's a good face-off man and all that. So you could do worse. Did they really sign Thornton and then the Sharks sign Tavares?
Yeah.
They just switch spots.
Yeah, that's what they do.
Man, that would
and
be
I think,
crazy.
how would you feel as a player if you knew you're John Thornton and your team isn't signing you because they're trying to land Tavares and you're like
Joe
their
Thornton.
second option?
You said John Thornton. Like John Tavares.
Joe, Big Joe.
Yeah, if you're
Joe.
Big Joe and they're just hanging Big John over your shoulder, being like, hey man, why don't you just sign for less money? We'll bring it, then we can afford JT.
Yeah.
I guess the other JT. They're both JT.
Yeah.
Man, this is confusing. So yeah, Islanders, we'll see what happens. Who's their second line center without him? I think it's Cizikas. I don't like that.
Yeah.
Hosang, is he a center?
Not a center you're going to do well with.
He played well in the minors, and he did complain about not getting called up, so that's a good way to get
Good.
people come up. Oh, he's a right winger. It looks like Hosang.
Yeah.
I don't think he plays much center, but
Yeah, good. Just keep complaining. I'm sure you'll get your way.
yeah. That's the Islanders. Either way, things are looking up for them. So
Who was the guy who went through this whole thing where he was like, I'm going to maybe sign somewhere else, and then he just ended up signing to his normal team again?
Stamkos?
Was it Stamkos?
I mean, he was.
Yeah, must have
he might
been.
the last
Yeah.
like big sort of where is he going to go? Is he going to Toronto? Because that's always the rumor. And then he ended up staying in Tampa.
Yeah.
Yeah, that might have been last summer.
Yeah, that was. Okay, so that is who I'm thinking of.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the same thing's going to happen with JT.
Yeah.
They're going to make this big deal about it, and then he's just going to go back to his normal team again.
And the other trump card that the Islanders have over everyone is being able to offer the eighth year to his deal. So if you're re-signing with your team you're already with, they're able to offer you 8 years, while every other team can only offer 7. I was actually really surprised to see him linked to Dallas, which would just be, that offense would be just filthy. You got Ben, you got Sagan, you got Radulov, and Tavares. That'd be dirty. That'd be dirty.
Yeah.
And also in other news, less exciting news, Dallas news, is Valery Nichushkin is coming back this year.
Yep.
So hard to say. I think anytime a Russian player is drafted high, people get excited, especially when they have skill and they're big, and people kind of cross their fingers, hoping he's going to be the next big thing. And then he leaves.
Radulov.
Yeah, Radulov worked out great. I mean, Radulov's an example of a guy who leaves, while he's young and comes back. So and ends up being better than when he left. Aside from the little stint in Nashville on his reunion tour. And then another guy reminds me of is it was a lower draft pick, so it's not quite the same. But Evgeny Dadonov was a guy who was, I think, maybe a third rounder or something for Florida. And he actually played in Florida for maybe a year, maybe 2 years, and didn't quite leave much of an impression. But he comes back, and then this year he's been fantastic. He's been like exactly what they need, and it's cool to see. Yeah, Dadonov played for the Panthers in 2010. He played 4 games, and then 2011 he was back and forth between AHL and the NHL. Played 36 games in Florida. 2012 he played 15 games, and then he's out, and then gone for a while, and then over point per game in Russia in the KHL, and then back this year for 65 points in 74 games. So that's the best case scenario, is kind of a young player that's not quite putting it all together in the NHL, going back to KHL and coming back. So I don't know. That would definitely make Dallas a lot more interesting. So,
and that's another really good top 6 you pretty much added to your lineup.
Yeah, and another
for no cost.
Totally. And another really underrated player on Dallas is Radek Faksa. A lot of people, a lot of Dallas fans are really excited about him, and he's sort of been playing a strong 2-way game, sort of second middle 6 center. That's kind of been some people were talking about him being nominated for the Selke, like being that good and just sort of underrated. So if he continues to develop, could be fantastic for them as well, and in a good position. Like they don't need him to step up and be a top 6 center, really, especially with Spezza around, right? Spezza is great.
Yeah.
I mean, he's
absolutely fantastic.
Could be better. Hopefully he has a bounce back year. We shall see.
Could have been kind of Hitchcock too. Just giving him like a hard time. We're trying to put him in a like a bottom 6 defensive kind of role.
I don't know.
Maybe he's just not suited for.
I feel like a lot of times players who are those kind of offensive players, especially if they're older, sometimes they end up getting pushed into those defensive roles or into different positions or playing on the penalty kill just to try and shake it up, because they're not getting it done how they need to with those offensive, deployments. And that's why they end up getting taken off. So it's definitely one of those things where you kind of need to follow the team pretty closely to see what it is behind those moves. But I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Who knows? We know all the things. Other guys going to UFA this summer. Looks like Mrazek is going to hit UFA. They're not going to retain him in Philly. And it looks like Robin Lehner is also not going to be retained in Buffalo. I know that Buffalo has hotshot AHL goalie Linus Ullmark, who put up some pretty scary numbers in the AHL, and he had a couple strong games in Buffalo this year, but he's still young, and they're not ready to just hand him the keys to the net all year. So they're sort of looking for kind of a 1A, 1B situation. Maybe they're a team that goes for Carter Hutton at maybe like to play 40% of the games this year. There's not a ton of like really sexy goalie options on the free market. Mrazek, like who's really excited about that? Does Detroit bring them back? I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen.
And
this time
Philly still has Elliott, right? Brian Elliott?
They do, yeah.
And they have that other guy who played a bunch of games, Alex Leon, who did okay. He was young, but he had a couple like pretty monster starts, but the consistency is not quite there yet either. So 6-1, and they have Carter Hart coming up, but I think he's still a couple years out. But on to trades. We cruised over the Hoffman Bodker trade. It's kind of old news now, but the latest trade is we got wild card Carolina stepping up to plate against Calgary Flames with a defenseman swap and a forward swap, pretty much even.
Yeah.
So the trade goes. Carolina ships out Elias Lindholm, Noah Hanifin for Michael Ferland, Dougie Hamilton, and defensive prospect Adam Fox. And defenseman prospect Adam Fox has some pretty good numbers. Could pan out. And maybe with a move like this, it lets them more easily ship out Justin Falk. I think they have 7 NHL defensemen now. So curious to see what happens here. And from what I can tell, if you think there's people on both sides who kind of see like, man, Carolina got fleeced, man, Calgary got totally robbed. And maybe it comes down to who you believe in more. How highly you rate Elias Lindholm versus Dougie Hamilton.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and okay, so as far as the defenseman goes, apparently Hamilton has some issues, locker room issues.
Yeah, traded twice. One more and he's off to Russia, right? Is that how that works? I don't know.
Yeah.
There was a quote saying that like the whole team would be going to Moxie's after practice for lunch, and he would go to the museum.
What?
Yeah, apparently he's just like kind of an oddball. And there was the other rumors about him, like Calgary owned the rights to his brother, Freddie Hamilton. And they traded him, and he wasn't a big fan of that. So I guess you got to be worried. You got to treat the brothers right. That's the other thing we learned.
Apparently. Well, we did. We got one of the Hughes brothers.
Yeah, we're on our way. Jack. Vancouver's on our way.
Yeah.
The other thing I read was that it was a pretty much straight swap. Michael Ferland is sort of a guy with more jam, more snarl to his game. Put up over 20 goals playing with Monahan and Gaudreau. Was a pretty good fit on that line. So it does show that he can play with skilled players. So that's good. You know, it's hard. It can be tough to find that third piece to complement sort of those talented duos. So Carolina at least has that. And Lindholm has more upside, it looks like. And also is a center and has played right wing in Carolina as well. So it looks like it's a straight swap where he's projected to be in the top line playing for his old coach from Carolina, Bill Peters.
Yeah, who apparently was the mastermind behind this trade, or like was trying to push this trade to happen.
Yeah, he just kind of like called him up on the weekend and was like, yeah, what up, ex-girlfriend? And maybe it's Skinner. Maybe Skinner's next. Maybe not to Calgary, but that's kind of the big rumored name to be on the move. And he seems like a guy who would do well with a fresh start somewhere. So I'm kind of rooting for him. He's kind of struggled with concussion stuff early on, but has been pretty consistent. Hasn't quite hit those big numbers for a little bit. This year was a little bit of a down year, but definitely someone who could use a change of scenery as well. And yeah, and then you're looking at Calgary. Looks like they're going to reunite Giordano and Brody on the second pair.
And then have Hamonic and Hanifin together.
Yeah. So
that's a very good top four. The only concern is Giordano's getting a bit old. The game may be a little too fast for him.
Yeah, but if they keep him, now they have options, right? And they also they have Michael Stone, who they got from Arizona, I think last summer or the summer before. Yeah. And they have another one of the young defensive prospects, Rasmus Anderson, who's coming up. Another highly rated prospect, Juuso Välimäki. So he's probably still a couple years out. But yeah, he's 6'2", 205, big Finnish guy, 16th overall from last year. So their defense is in decent shape. Monahan and Gaudreau are still young. Bennett hopefully does a little better. But even if he doesn't, right now he's on the third line with none other than Mark Jankowski. having made the jump, he's been playing pretty consistently actually now, and then the second line of Tkachuk, Backlund, and Frolik was pretty solid as well. Really strong defensively. So Calgary should be in the playoffs next year. You think, as long as Mike Smith shows up, and he's not getting any younger. So that's kind of the only question mark. And John Gillies could take a step. I know he's really highly rated goalie of theirs, so I don't know. I mean, I think
Calgary's going to do really well.
Yeah,
I think they had coach issues last season. They have such a good top six.
Yeah, with a fresh start, really good. You think they're bound to be better, right?
Yeah,
and I think even though they
have Sam Bennett still, who's still growing.
It's true, and even though they don't have a McDavid, it's a better team on paper than Edmonton, isn't it?
Oh yeah, they actually have defensemen.
I think it's their defenseman is the big difference, and also their forward lines are a little more figured out, right? Because in Edmonton, they've been really trying to split up Draisaitl and McDavid, and that's when they both performed at their best, was when they're together, especially Draisaitl himself. So they're still on the hunt, like we always hear about, who's going to play, who can play with Crosby, and for a long time it was Chris Kunitz and Dupuis were like tied at the hip. That was like a pretty consistent line. And then whoever else would play with Malkin, but whether it was James Neal or whoever before Kessel came along and Hornquist, right? So they've figured that out. But Edmonton, trade away Eberle, and they got Strome, who is not playing with McDavid, and they signed Lucic, and that they probably want to take that back. You know, he's been pretty big and slow. Hopefully he turns it around for them. They definitely could use that. So
Yeah.
who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows? But yeah, Calgary deserves better. They got some good guys.
Yeah, they're a team that's one of the rare teams that's underperforming based on the talent they have. And it goes to show how important a coach is for a team, really. Because a lot of the time you're just like, oh, this team doesn't have the players. But in Calgary's case, you see, well, it's not always the case. It's sometimes you have good players. You just need to make it happen with a good coach, putting a good system down.
Mm-hmm. So let's just take a quick look at the Western Conference. And these are teams that missed the playoffs last year that we think improved or should be better next year. Teams that missed the playoffs. We got St. Louis. We got Dallas, who with this Nichushkin kid should be better as long, and their goalie, you know, Bishop should bounce back. He was injured a little bit. Should be good. So we got Dallas, and St. Louis just missed. They missed the playoffs by like three or 4 points. So they were close. Calgary missed. Edmonton missed. Chicago missed. Vancouver missed. Arizona missed. So who from St. Louis, Dallas, Calgary, Edmonton, Chicago, Vancouver, Arizona, which of those are going to make the playoffs? Who do you think's the best bet?
St. Louis and Dallas and Colorado, or Calgary, sorry.
What about Arizona, though?
No.
What about Arizona?
What about Arizona?
They have Galchenyuk now. And let me remind you, they were one of the best teams in the league in the second half.
No.
Ranta was on. Nothing? No?
No. I don't think it's going to happen.
Okay.
I don't think it's going to happen.
So Arizona's out.
They're...
So it's looking like Dallas, St. Louis, Calgary.
I think those three are going to come
Edmonton
up.
will miss again?
Obviously, they're going to miss again. Nothing's changed. They're still just.
I mean, maybe they just
awful.
all had a down year. Maybe that's what happened.
Oh, yeah. That's probably it.
Because you have, I mean, Cam Talbot will be better. You got to think, right?
Yeah.
He can't, and Clefbaum is going to be a lot better. He had a great year, and then this year that was kind of down year. And
who's their D again?
We got
exactly.
Well, you know Matt Benning. You remember Matt Benning, right?
Oh yeah, classic.
You remember what do we got? Chris Pronger.
Adam Larson.
Chris Pronger. Does he still play with you?
Yeah. I think he does. I think
Adam
he's
Larson.
Take him.
Darnell Nurse.
Yeah.
And Adam Larson are technically the
Adam
top
Larson?
pair.
Their defense is so bad. You have to name
Andre
it twice.
Sekera was injured for the first start of the year, and he's not getting any younger.
Yeah.
Chris Russell leaves something to be desired. Matt Benning. Clefbaum.
So Sekura and Russell are like two really important defensemen for them, and they're both basically 31 and 32.
Yeah, and they have this French guy, Johan Avitu, who didn't really do anything for them. And I think he's back to the KHL this year, actually.
Yeah.
Not looking great.
Yeah.
Not looking great.
Yeah. Wait, yeah, so
Edmonton, they got it. If McDavid carries them there, great. Congrats, you're in the playoffs. Congrats, you just lost the first round. And then
he's going to win a cup for them.
So then we're looking at who are they going to knock out, right? Vegas, there's a chance they regress, right?
I think it's going to be Minnesota.
Yeah, Minnesota I could see
Colorado.
Slipping. No, Colorado, man. I think they're back in it.
No, what? That team is so bad.
Is it the
McDavid? Unless McDavid's going to be a freak again.
No.
Is he going to be a freak
McKinnon,
again?
You mean?
McKinnon, sorry,
Yeah.
not McDavid. McKinnon.
I don't think McDavid
wishes he was McKinnon.
Yeah. Yeah, their defense is on paper is like, how do they make the playoffs?
Pretty much.
They do have Sam Girard, who's their Samuel Girard, who they acquired in the Duchesne trade as well, who is pretty solid, small, speedy defenseman. Tyson Barrie, Eric Johnson, I think was injured for some of that.
Their defense is really young.
It's young.
I'll give them that.
Zadorov has been decent. He's okay.
Yeah. Could be like a San Jose situation with their defense where they're not like popular or anything or like big names, but they just get the job done.
And maybe it's next year that, because they did draft Cale Makar, who is like I think at 4th or 5th overall, who is like supposed to be real special, like a kind of a Chris Letang kind of player, 5'11", 187, thick guy,
thick boy,
and like a dominant offensive defenseman. So I don't know, Cale Makar, he's probably still a year out though. So, but they'll be a fun team to watch with that Landeskog, McKinnon, Rantanen line. It's just been real good. And then Tyson Jost. Also really highly rated. He was like 10th overall or something like that. So
yeah, their forwards are really good.
He could take a step for sure.
Yeah, their top 9 is like very nice to look at.
And then LA, does LA get to the playoffs again? No. Even with Kovy?
I don't think so.
Man.
Wait, hold on. No, hold on. Sorry.
LA. Dowdy.
Yeah.
Kovy. Carter.
They're all injuries, though.
Carter was injured most of the year last year.
Yeah, they're all injuries. If Quick doesn't get injured, they'll make it.
Okay.
But Quick keeps getting injured. Poor guy. I feel bad because he's really good.
Yeah. And I got to say, they have Dion Phaneuf now, which...
Oh, game changer.
But I will say, he's been okay. He's just not a number one guy.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and they don't need him to be, as long as everyone's healthy. Like, him on the second pairing, even from the games I've been to, like, he's scoring goals. He's looking like there's less pressure on him. Loosey-goosey. Dion Phaneuf.
Yeah. Well, he's in a market where if you do good, everyone's going to be like, hey, good job. And if you do bad, then it's like, oh, well, whatever.
Maybe. Yeah.
It's good. Sometimes you need that kind. Like, he was in Toronto. Who wants to play in Toronto?
Yeah, it's a lot.
I don't blame him.
It's a lot. You can't even eat a hot dog in peace.
Yeah, pretty much.
Man. All right. Well.
Who do you think?
I think Minnesota. And, yeah, I feel like Colorado. It's going to be tough. It's just going to be tough for them to come out. I think you're right. So Minnesota and Colorado, I feel like LA, especially with Kovy, helps keep them in it. And if Quick is at least his average, you know.
Can I make a bold prediction?
What's that?
Anaheim's going to get not make the playoffs next year.
I don't know how bold
I don't
know how bold that is.
That's my West bold prediction.
Wait,
is that not a bold prediction?
They were on my chopping block. They were there.
Oh, were they?
The thing is,
they got 101 points. I guess that's not that much. But they were only 8 points out from Vegas.
Players on Anaheim I'm excited about. Ricard Raquel, Ryan Getzlaf, Silverberg. Henrique was great for them. Andre Kasha is pretty good. Cogliano was decent, pretty good for them. He's like pretty underrated. Corey Perry, not that excited. Ryan Kessler, I'd rather not. Right? Can we not, Ryan Kessler?
Pretty much.
And then they got JT Brown on the fourth line. He's, this is a pretty quick player. Their defense is like decent. They got Manson, Lindholm, Montour, Francois Beauchemin. Really, man. Still,
dude, Beauchemin. How are you gonna hate on Beauchemin?
He's still going. Oh yeah, and Fowler. Fowler was injured for a bunch of.
Well, is Beauchemin there for sure? I don't think he's there for sure. I don't see Beauchemin being like. I think he's done. No.
He played a good amount of games last year.
Oh, I saw Fowler, Manson, Lindholm, Montour, Pedersen, and Walensky.
Francois Beauchemin. Are you retired? You are 38. So there's...
Just give it up, man. Just give it up.
I was surprised.
Respect. He's so good for so long.
He played 67 games last year.
He's old.
It's not nothing.
And he's still kicking it.
Nothing. And he played all He played 4 playoff games. Didn't do anything in them, but he played them. I don't know. You can't really rely on him. Yeah, Anaheim's out. Who am I kidding? They're done. They do have a couple young guys who, if they step up this year, great, fantastic. That's Sam Steele and Max Jones, who are kind of their 2 up and coming prospects who have been in the oven for a couple of years. So
yeah. But I think they're gonna get knocked out. That's my prediction on the West. I think Anaheim's gonna be the one that's like doesn't make it.
Just think about St. Louis though. The last 2 years, they've been sellers at the trade deadline. They shipped out.
This is
They shipped
true.
out Shattenkirk, and they shipped out Stastny. And apparently Stastny is could potentially end up back there, so that's an option. But
apparently Parenko. People are calling about him.
Parayko.
What's going on in St. Louis?
Why are they trading?
It
all
doesn't
their
make
players
it.
away?
Yeah, I don't understand. It's not like their players are crazy old or it's a necessity. Their oldest player is Steen at 34. They have Chris Thorburn, but he's 4th line. But Steen top 6, 34. I don't understand the big deal. And Bouwmeester's 34, almost 35. You have 2 players. Is that those are the studs? Now you have to rebuild because those players are done.
Hard to say. I mean, you got to think Schwartz got injured. A third of the way through the season. He missed the middle of the season, I think. But that line was unreal to start. Braden Shen, if that line gets even close to what they were at, Shen, Tarasenko, and Schwartz, that'll win you a lot of games. And then no Stastny. Definitely Robert Thomas is kind of a first rounder they got from not last year but the year before, I think, and is really highly rated. People are really excited about him, and he seems kind of just an all-around one of those good old boy Canadian prospects that that everyone loves.
Don Cherry would love.
Yeah, he turns 19 this summer. He was drafted what year? Was it last year? Year before? Yeah, 2017. Yes, last year, 20th overall. But he's 6 foot, 192, just strong all-round center. So I could see him end up taking the if he does crack the lineup and sticks around past 9 games, I could see him by Christmas being second line center. So could be good. But that's a lot of show. Is there anything else we haven't talked about? Grubauer, he's going to save the Avs. Remember Grubauer, 3 years.
Oh yeah,
3.3
forgot
million.
about that. The savior. Actually, that's one thing I would give Colorado that they kind of needed was that Varlamov was getting injured too frequently. Now they have a good, solid backup that can step in.
They had a good run out of Jonathan Bernier when Varlamov was injured for a lot of last year, and without Bernier, they don't make the playoffs last year for sure. But yeah, having a little more security in that and assigning Grubauer to 3 years after acquiring him, kind of the writing's on the wall that Bernier is going to be on the move. So maybe Bernier ends up in New York, in the Islanders. I could see that being an okay fit for them if either him or Hutton. So interesting. Yeah. Interesting stuff.
Yeah, we'll see. We will see.
But is Grubauer that good? How good is Grubauer though? Right?
I think he's a good backup. I think he has a very similar situation as Elliott. He's good when there's a challenge.
Yeah.
But I don't think...
Is he Scott Darling?
He's going to...
Is he?
He's no Scott Darling. Oh, that's another guy I had and I dropped.
Yeah.
I'm great at picking up good players and dropping them.
Well, I remember Darling. I think I had Darling and then I traded him away for something probably better than him. I'm just going to assume I won that trade. But yeah, he's a guy who had great backup numbers in Chicago and then not so much in Carolina. But then who did good in Carolina outside of Aho? So it's kind of it can be tough to be too hard on a player like that in that situation. But if Darling,
it's true.
If Carolina gets league average goaltending, they're back in the playoffs, I think. Especially Svechnikov, all these young guys. And then the other young guy, Martin Nichas, could make the team this year, who's like one of their untouchables as well. Him and Aho, it sounds like. Czech, maybe 6 foot, 6'2", Czech center. Could put on some weight, but real good, real underrated. I think 12th overall pick from last year. Also on my fantasy team, so I'm excited about that. But
yeah.
But hey, man, that's I think that's about it for this week. Sounds like it.
Awesome possum.
Yeah.
This is a good one. I like this one. This one was exciting.
Yeah, real good stuff. So as always, be sure to follow us on Twitter, and maybe you can you'll be able to interact with our first tweet ever. We're on Twitter at HockeyPalsPod, and we're on YouTube. Just Google Hockey Pals. And don't forget to give us a review on iTunes. And that's about all she wrote. Anything else? What did we miss? We didn't miss a thing. And
we didn't miss anything important.
And what we didn't miss, be sure to let us know in the comments and yell at us and do all those things. And this is the first episode, so we're pretty much talking to the two people that accidentally clicked on this link. So welcome aboard. And,
hey, thanks, you two.
Why don't you accidentally click on this next week? You might like it. Till next time.